What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, I wanted to go over the newly released Shadow Altered Form Giratina here in the Pokemon Go Battle League. This Pokemon, in my opinion, is going to be a very good pick, but it's also going to be a very problematic Pokemon for the game. I'm kind of sad that once again, in classic Niantic/Scopely fashion, they've released a new, very strong Pokemon for PvP, and they've made it very hard to get. This Pokemon, unlike something like Galarian Corsola, doesn't take a huge resource grind. In fact, it's kind of the opposite, where you are not even allowed to grind for it. You're going to be able to get one, maybe a couple more encounters if you've saved other Super Rocket Radars from previous seasons, but if you don't have those Super Rocket Radars saved up, then you realistically only get a single encounter with this Pokemon, and if you get a bad stat spread, it could be kind of catastrophic. I'm going to go over the stat spreads in this video, what you want to look for here, what kind of stats are going to be at least viable for this Pokemon, so you can see if yours is going to be able to stack up to it. But just in general, this Pokemon is going to be, I think, very good. Dragon Ghost is a fantastic typing. It can either use Dragon Breath or Shadow Claw. We'll also go over movesets just to see what kind of movesets you want to be running. But through and through, I hope they do give us more encounters with this Pokemon in the future, because it does look like it will be a Great League meta staple. Moving over to pvpoke.com, everyone's favorite website for figuring out if a Pokemon's going to be good in PvP. Let's take a look at what Giratina is going to be looking like here with different movesets. I have the Shadow Claw variant here selected. I have the Dragon Breath one as well. Let's just take a look at how this Pokemon is going to fare in the open Great League meta. Let's take a look at the Zero Shield matchup first, just so we can see if this Pokemon is going to be good enough to be a Pokemon you want to go for. And yeah, we can see here, Dragon Breath as well as Shadow Claw both have quite a bit of play. The Shadow Claw variant does fall behind a little bit in the Zero Shield matchup. Let's take a look at the head-to-head losses. Looks like there's about 5 Pokemon that end up becoming losses for Shadow Claw. Are there going to be some wins? Yeah, okay, so the Shadow Claw variant ends up winning against Shadow Dusclops as well as having a better time against Shadow Scizor, but you end up losing out against the Diggersby, Drapion, the Shadow Drapion that is, Dunsparce, Giratina Altered with the Dragon Breath variant, and Mandibuzz, and also Primeape. So I think those are some decently big matchups. The Air Slash Mandibuzz being a win for Giratina with Dragon Breath, I think that kind of makes sense if you're running Ancient Power, but it's still kind of crazy to see that you can win that matchup. Diggersby as well is a huge pickup for the Dragon Breath variant, but winning against the Dusclops could be kind of another reason, as well as, I guess this is a tie against Shadow Scizor. That might be another reason to want to run the Shadow Claw variant as well, but I think in the Zero Shield matchup, it is looking like the Dragon Breath variant is coming out on top. Now, these stat spreads obviously are very optimistic here. It's something the 6-15-6. We'll take a look at some much worse stat spreads in just a minute, just so we can try to figure out if this Pokemon is actually going to be something that is worth investing in, even if you don't have a great one. The One Shield matchup. Let's take a look at that. Once again, looks very similar here. It's going to be another situation where the Dragon Breath variant has 5 more wins than the Shadow Claw variant. Giratina Altered once again being a loss here. Wait, I don't understand how Shadow Claw loses to Shadow Claw. Shouldn't that be a tie? Okay, either way, PvPoke being crazy. Cradilly, though, is a loss here for Shadow Claw. Same with Diggersby, Shadow Drapion, Greninja, Shadow Kanto Marowak, and Morpeko. Honestly, those are some pretty big losses here for the Shadow Claw variant. I think Dragon Breath in the One Shield matchup is looking so much better. You actually end up somehow winning against the opposing Shadow Claw variant, but obviously that is a very CMP-reliant matchup. Whoever wins that Charge Attack priority is going to be able to guarantee the win there, so I would take that with a grain of salt. Realistically, you just end up losing out on 6 matchups just for no reason. How about in the 2-shield scenario, though? Are there any matchups that could potentially be wins for the Shadow Claw variant that would put it over the top? We can take a look. It's better. It's 32-16 for the Dragon Breath variant, which is still leagues ahead of the Shadow Claw variant, but the Shadow Claw variant does have a positive win rate, 25 wins, 22 losses. Let's take a look at what those are looking like here. That is a lot of purple. Purple means that the Shadow Claw variant loses those matchups. Blue obviously means that it wins those matchups. So you do actually have a couple of pickups here. You have the Azumarill matchup, which, I mean, beating a Fairy type is always a great thing for a Dragon type Pokemon. Shadow Claw damage is going to help out a lot against the Fairies. You have the Dugong win as well. I guess the charge attack pressure here, just spamming out Ancient Powers, could be a little bit better. You beat Fortress with the neutral fast move pressure. You beat Shadow Scizor, which is actually kind of a big one. You beat Galarian Weezing, or you tie with Galarian Weezing, even if they're on Brutal Swing. That's kind of cool to see, I guess, but that's all you end up picking up, and then you lose Diggersby, you lose Shadow Drapion, you lose Dunsparce, you lose the Dragon Breath Giratina matchup, you lose the Shadow Claw. Okay, you don't. I don't know what's going on with PvPoke right now. Obviously, the mirror match with the Shadow Claw variant is going to be CMP dependent, but you lose Greninja, you lose Air Slash Mandibuzz, you lose Marowak or the Shadow Kanto Marowak, that is. You lose Morpeko, you lose Sableye, you lose Shadow Sableye. Honestly, though, the fact that you beat Sableye with the Dragon Breath Giratina is insane, so I'm kind of surprised to even see that here. But in general, it looks like the Dragon Breath is just leagues ahead of the Shadow Claw variant. which I mean, I was kind of expecting. Dragon Breath obviously is a move, especially the longer the matchup goes on, the better it gets. You have so many good wins here. There are some losses. The Dark types obviously are a little bit tricky for this Ghost type Pokemon, but you're able to put in a lot of neutral pressure against so many different matchups here. So I think that the Dragon Breath variant could likely be the preferred moveset, but if you want better coverage against the Steel types and the Fairy types, maybe Shadow Claw could be the way to go. Could be a little bit team dependent on what you're running, what you need that coverage for, but in general, I think Dragon Breath is the one I'm going to be looking into myself going forward. But it's not just going to be the best case scenario, right? We're not always going to have the 615 6 Giratina. In fact, I'm sure most of us won't have that. Let's come over here to our Giratina, get a second Dragon Breath Giratina this time, and let's adjust its stats so that it's not a 615 6. Let's make it a bit more realistic here. Have like a 15 9 6. Yeah, this looks absolutely terrible here. 1455 CP. That is about as bad as it gets. So if this one has a lot of good wins, then potentially, it could still be a Pokemon that is worth looking into. Let's take a look. What does this Pokemon do in the Zero Shield matchup? This is a high rank Dragon Breath Giratina compared to a high rank Dragon Breath Giratina. It's going to be in the Zero Shield matchup. There are some notable differences, it looks like here. There's 5 extra matchups that the higher rank one is able to pull out. It's going to be the Diggersby matchup's actually a tie here for the lower rank one, but you also have Fortress that you end up losing, Gastrodon, Shadow Gligar, and Mandibuzz. So, I mean, those aren't the most common Pokemon in the meta. Fortress is rising recently, but Gastrodon, Gligar, Mandibuzz, I mean, they're around. They're not super common, but they are still Pokemon that I think in theory you'd want to be able to have a lot more play into. It is kind of sad to see that those are ending up as losses here for a lower ranked Giratina. Let's also take a look real quick what like breakpoints and bulk points look like for the Shadow Giratina here. If you have a lot more attack, you actually get a regular Dusclops bulk point, which is maybe helpful. And you get a Shadow Jumpluff breakpoint as well. So that could maybe come in play in the 1s or 2s. I guess we'll find out if that's actually going to help out. What bulk points do you miss out on here as a very poorly ranked one? That's a lot of purple. That's a lot that you miss out on having a worse Giratina. Oh, and that's a big one. There's actually a Dragon Breath bulk point that you miss out on. That could be bad. That means that in the mirror match, potentially, if you have a bad Giratina, you might just get completely farmed down. You're going to be taking an extra damage every single Dragon Breath. That mirror match could be potentially one of the worst case scenarios. So we'll have to see how that plays out the longer that we have the shielding scenarios go for. There's a lot of bulk points we miss out on here. Honestly, almost every single Pokemon has a bulk point against us. There's a Fortress bulk point. I guess that's why that matchup is so much worse here. But yeah, that was just the Zero Shield matchup where, honestly, a couple wins that you wish you would have had with a lower ranked Giratina. I guess we'll see if in the 1 Shield matchup we can make up for it. Let's take a look at the ones. I'm already seeing some discrepancies here. We are going to see it's 24 and 24 once again for the Dragon Breath high rank variant. The poor Giratina here, the low rank one, is once again missing out on about 5 wins. Let's take a look at what those are going to be. You actually do pick up Dusclops. Okay, that breakpoint is doing something here. That is good news. But you end up losing Shadow Drapion. You lose out on Shadow Feraligatr, Fortress. You lose out on that Dragon Breath Giratina. You probably just get completely farmed down if you don't have that bulk point in the 1 Shield matchup. That is so sad. You lose Shadow Kanto Marowak. You lose Shadow Primate. Those are some big ones, honestly. That is kind of sad to see. So not having defense, not having a high rank Giratina could be pretty bad for us here. Maybe the 2 Shield matchup's going to be different. Let's take a look at it just to make sure that maybe there's some play for it. I mean, obviously, this is like the worst case scenario Giratina, so not everyone's Giratina is going to be this bad. In the 2s, it is a little bit more reasonable here. You see that you still lose out on 4 matchups, but it is still 28 and 20. That's still pretty positive. So 2 Shield matchup, not terrible for it. You end up losing out on Shadow Drapion, Giratina. Yeah, you just still get Dragon Breath down. You lose Jumpluff. How does the other one even beat Jumpluff? That's kind of crazy. And you also end up losing out on Shadow Sableye, which, once again, I'm really surprised that you ever even beat Shadow Sableye. Oh, you still beat regular Sableye, so there's that. Yeah, those are kind of bad losses, right? Especially this Dragon Breath bulk point in the mirror match here. You want to make sure that if you get a Giratina, make sure to go into pvpoke.com, enter your Giratina IVs, battle against a default Giratina, see if you can get that bulk point there in that matchup. Yeah, the more that I look at this low-rank Shadow Giratina, the sadder that I get. I hope that they give us more encounters with this Pokemon, because if you only have, like, 1 chance here, the odds of getting one that's more along the lines of this bottom one than the top one are pretty likely, right? My Shadow Legendary luck has not been great in the past, so I could imagine some people out there are not going to be super happy with this rotation if they don't get a good one. But it's not just the Great League where Giratina has some play. Let's take a look at Ultra League real quick, just for fun. Let's see how the Shadow Giratina plays, and let's just compare it to the regular Giratina, just so we can see if the Shadow is going to be a Pokemon you might want to consider having there. Oh, that is not how you do that. because I mean, I personally I only have one radar, so I'm only gonna have a Great League Shadow Giratina. If you have multiple radars, at least you have the option to have one in Ultra League. Let's also swap over to the Ultra League meta, just so we can see how is this matchup gonna be in the Zero Shield matchup against most of the Ultra League. Oh, okay, yeah, these are still Great League Giratinas. Let me fix that. No wonder it's 0-50 or whatever. Let's just fix that real quick. That is embarrassing. Who would have thought a Great League Giratina does not really pick up too many wins in Ultra League? Okay, let's fix that. The Zero Shield matchup. Okay, now you have some wins. That's great stuff. But it looks very similar here. You end up picking up Kraydilly, Guzzlord, and Skeledirge as the Shadow variant. You lose Fortress. You lose apparently a Shadow Claw Giratina, and you lose Registeel. But yeah, that looks like it's still a pretty neutral matchup. Everything that you lose does look pretty close, so it doesn't look like it's that big of a downgrade. It's really just a side grade here from what I can tell. The one shield matchup. How about that? We see the one shield matchup, a lot of blue across the board. It's 26. Okay, you actually pick up a win. It's actually quite different here in the ones. You end up beating Kraydilly, Shadow Drapion, that's always a big one. Lapras, even with Ice Beam, okay. Licky, Registeel. Okay, so you lose Registeel in the zeros. You pick up Registeel in the ones. That's cool to know. You end up losing out, though, to Feraligatr, Grumpig, Shadow Caesar, and Skeledirge. All right, I mean, honestly, I think the Shadow here kind of has had me sold in the one-shield matchup, at least. That's a lot better wins than you end up dropping here. Let's take a look at the two-shield matchup, just for fun, once again. Is the Shadow variant going to be a Pokemon worth using? And the two-shield, honestly, the Dragon Breath, or the regular non-Shadow Giratina does have a bit better matchup. So you actually somehow beat Malamar as the Shadow. That's cool. But you lose out Giratina. Okay, there's some matchups here I don't even know. I didn't even know Giratina with Dragon Breath beat Galarian Moltres in the two-shield. That's crazy. You lose out on Tentacruel with Blizzard. I guess you might just get one shot after the fast moves. You lose out on Greninja. So it seems like a bit of a trade-off. Honestly, for Ultra League, it seems like Shadow Giratina is just a really interesting side grade. It doesn't seem like a huge upgrade. But if you have one, you might as well build it. I only have one Giratina, as I was talking about here. I only have the one that I have for the Great League. I would much rather have one for Great League. So if you only have one Giratina, probably just keep it for the 1500 CP limit. If you have two or three, you might as well try to get one for Ultra League as well. It does look like a fun pick. Some trade-offs, some good matchups, some bad matchups. So it does seem like a viable Pokemon there as well. Master League, I would look at it, but Giratina has not been relevant there for a long time. I have to imagine it's still pretty bad. But I really just want to reiterate that I hope that they let us have a few more of these encounters in the future. Well, I myself, as I keep saying, I only have one, so I can't even use an Ultra League one unless I wanted to sacrifice my Great League one. I hope they at least somehow let us get a couple more encounters before Giratina does end up leaving the Giovanni rotation. I guess only time will tell what they end up doing, but, a guy can hope, I guess, at this point. All right, but yeah, thank you so much for watching today's video. I know this is a bit of a ramble, a bit of a rant by me, but, it's because I love the game. I want to make sure that people can have the Pokemon that are meta, and this one is a step backward for accessibility, I think, just in general. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.